Hi, I'm Julia Swagan. I'm the Director of Attuned Families, and today I would like to share a presentation with you on the nervous system. At Attuned Families, we provide child and family therapy with a focus on attachment and the nervous system. And so it's really important for people working with kids to have a bit of basic understanding of how the nervous system functions. And we're also going to talk about why so many people are struggling with nervous system issues and some solutions. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Here we go. So there we are. Okay, so today we're going to talk about polyvagal theory, the nervous system, implications of what we've learned about the nervous system for families, and how to make sense of why so many families are seeing difficulties with the nervous system in their family members, and an introduction to the Safe and Sound protocol. And there won't be any questions today. In the live seminar that I offered, there are questions, of course, and this is a recording. But if you do have questions after viewing this presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. The email address is info@attunedfamilies.ca, or you can hop over to our website, attunedfamilies.ca or attunedfamilies.com, and reach out to us that way. So polyvagal theory originated in 1994 and is now based on many, many, many years of research, because research has continued over the years. And the Safe and Sound protocol, which is a therapy that we offer, is based on polyvagal theory. Polyvagal theory focuses on what is happening in the body and the nervous system, and explains how our sense of safety or danger or threat can impact our behavior. So this is really important to understand when you're seeing behaviors in children. And it has identified 3 pathways of our nervous system and the various ways in which they each respond to stressful situations. So understanding these pathways helps us understand people's reactions to different situations. So a little bit about the nervous system. The nervous system is sort of a highway on which messages go between your brain and what's happening in and around the body. So we can communicate with the outside world through the nervous system, and we also receive messages through the nervous system, which is of course made up of all the nerve cells, the neurons in your body. So there are several. The nervous system is of course very complex, and I by no means consider myself an expert on the nervous system itself. I do like to be informed about the nervous system and how it functions with respect to social, emotional, behavioral, and relational issues that I help treat in children and families and help schools understand. For today, but there's way more to the nervous system than is presented here. Today we're going to focus on the autonomic nervous system. It regulates involuntary bodily responses, including heart rate, breathing, digestion, and branches out into the sympathetic nervous system, which prepares the body for action or the fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms the body and helps the body conserve energy. We call that sort of rest and digest mode. So the autonomic nervous system has a couple of pathways. So the first pathway is the sympathetic branch, which prepares us for action. It responds to cues of danger and triggers, releases adrenaline, which fuels the flight or fight response. The parasympathetic branch, in which the vagus nerve is found, contains the dorsal and ventral vagal pathway. So pathway number 2, the ventral vagal pathway, is responsible for social engagement and responds well to cues of safety and supports feelings of being safely and socially engaged and connected. Pathway number 3, the dorsal vagal pathway, responds to cues of extreme danger, takes us out of awareness and into a protective state of collapse or freeze, and takes over control. So this is dissociation in action. It's referred to in the trauma world as dissociation. So in the polyvagal theory, there's sort of an autonomic ladder to help you understand. So of course, we always want to be in the green. When there's a threat, we will move into either sympathetic or dorsal vagal. Now, if we enter into sympathetic, and I think this is important to understand for children and families, if we enter into sympathetic, so we're stressed and we attempt to fight or flight and discover that there's no way out of the situation, that our fighting and fleeing is not going to be a viable option, we will move into dorsal vagal, where you sort of collapse and shut down and dissociate. So obviously, our nervous system health is very important to our well-being. The brain and body's first priority is to keep us alive. And when the nervous system remains in a chronic state of defense through fight or flight, so if these pathways of fight or flight or freeze get activated frequently, our system can go into a state of defense where it's harder for our system to go into the rest and digest mode and to relax because it doesn't feel safe to go there. And it can also make social engagement not feel safe. It affects both the mind and body. So the other thing is, if social interactions haven't typically been safe, so when we think about relational aggression, either at home or at school, we talk about bullying, we talk about high stress environments in families because of everything families are up against. Children's nervous systems can go into a state of defense and can also, and that defensive state can get triggered through social engagement. And what happens then is that the cues that normally make for successful or productive social engagement are not functioning properly. And so children have difficulty, or adults have difficulty with social engagement because their system triggers this defense mode in social situations. So, implications for families. I imagine a lot of parents in particular would hear this information and say, well, I can't really make sense of like why my child's nervous system would be in defense. And I do work with a lot of families who come to me and they're sort of like, we don't really know what's going wrong here, but we're seeing a lot of things in our kids that we're concerned about, or we don't know if we need to be concerned about. And the thing is, most threats are relational and social. And so ultimately the threat that nervous systems are experiencing most of the time right now is the threat of disconnection. And because we're wired for connection, particularly children, their very survival depends on their connection to secure attachment figures. So when we're rejected by a loved one, and as I said, we can't fight or flee without risking further disconnection, the dorsal vagal pathway gets triggered and shuts us down. And when this keeps happening, it negatively affects our social engagement system, and then our kids become harder to reach. So there are many factors that are predisposing today's average family to problems with the nervous system and to this sort of, we don't know where this is coming from, but things are not going optimally for our kids. So warm, attuned relationships are the vehicle through which motivation and learning and growth happen best. So this is an excerpt from an article from the SSP website that really nicely communicates the importance of attachment relationships as they relate to the nervous system. So what gets in the way of connected relationships? Unfortunately, many of us didn't learn how to be in warm, attuned relationships, which would have helped us to pay that forward to our kids. Due to traumas, disordered attachment challenges with our own parents, and passed on generational patterns, and don't even get me started on intergenerational trauma, that's a whole other workshop. But it is amazing, some of the research coming out on intergenerational trauma. As parents, we do so much for our kids. We are working so hard for them. We spend money on them, we teach them, we even push them to do more. Often we have a hard time tolerating being with their big emotions. And we may prioritize compliance and following the norm at the expense of staying attuned to our children's authentic needs in the present moment. And attunement is such a key, intangible factor in relationships. That's also a whole other workshop. In addition, we may have nervous systems that have been shaped through life experience to go into fight or flight or freeze easily, causing us to disconnect from our kids and not be able to attune to them from a ventral vagal, safe, social, and connected state. So children's nervous systems are very immature, and that's really important to remember here. As I said, humans are wired for connection, particularly children. It's how we survive. So disconnection and threats of disconnection, especially during upset, impacts the nervous system. So the good example is like the child breaks a glass, and the stressed out parent, like there are sort of three possibilities that come to mind in how a secure attachment figure could respond to that situation. So the glass breaks. A secure attachment figure, so let's say parent, for the sake of ease, comes along with compassion and empathy and problem solving. It's like, oh, the glass broke, okay, let's clean it up, right? Because and let's say the child's startled, right, by the glass breaking, so that parent is working to help calm the child's nervous system down and solve the problem, right? Second option, a parent who is under a lot of stress and is equally startled by the glass breaking, gets triggered because of their own stuff, and freaks out a little bit, like, oh no, the glass is broken, or we're supposed to be going out the door, or whatever it is, right? And so then, you know, they solve the problem, but that child is left alone with that feeling and feels like they've caused some somewhat scary feelings in their caregiver. And then the third possibility is caregiver either freaks out and is punitive, or is just punitive. Why didn't I've told you 8 million times to put your cup in the middle of the table so that this doesn't happen. So now we have startle, we have disconnection through disapproval, and we have shame. So you see how easily for a child this sense of disconnection can happen, and when that disconnection is happening in the context of them already being upset, that's actually quite harmful for the nervous system. So upset is caused very easily in children, and most behavior problems in children stem from a lack of connection, which can be understood in the context of the nervous system and other factors. So for parents, our job is to co-regulate our children. They feel our feelings, and they tend to mirror our nervous systems. If our nervous system is in a defensive state, the ups and downs of a child's behavior and needs will trigger us. Our own nervous system state gets mirrored in our children, so then they can become easily triggered, and then we have everybody triggering everybody. Our own nervous system state also impacts our reactions to our children. Dominant messages in our culture have encouraged separation-based disciplines. So timeouts, love withdrawal, disapproval, teaching, which is not always a separation-based discipline, but I would say that the teaching a lesson, right? Rewards and consequences. So contingent approval and connection dependent on the child's behavior, and a focus over behavior a focus on behavior over needs and emotions. High expectations on parents and mixed messages can lead to shame in parents, which is also quite toxic for the nervous system and can trigger a sense of disconnect. So for families, emotional states are contagious, especially anxiety. And so one person having difficulties impacts everyone in the family. Modern families are also not well supported. We often lack knowledge of child development and what are reasonable expectations of our children. We're usually way ahead of where our children are at developmentally in our expectations of them. We operate in relative isolation. We're supposed to be doing this with the support of a village. And we face a lot of separation early on, as do our children. So children most often separate from their primary attachment figures way earlier than they're developmentally ready. And they also gain a sense of psychological separation through popular discipline methods. So that disapproval, love withdrawal, the timeouts. So hopefully in the context of what I've just shared, it starts to make sense why we're encountering nervous system difficulties in children and families. And it's really important in what I do as a social worker that we look at the contextual factors so that we don't just put the onus on every individual to carry the brunt or the blame or the shame around or the responsibility for what's going wrong. And when I say that, as much as I really don't see problems in children as parents' faults, I do see parents as an incredible resource for shifting things in children. And so that's why I do the work that I do. So there are certainly ways that parents can help and professionals can help parents help their children's nervous systems and their own nervous systems. So generally speaking, eating well and exercising, 7 minutes of high intensity exercise will get you all of the brain, mood, and energy benefits of any length of exercise. So hopefully if exercise is not your thing and you hate me for saying to exercise, that makes it a little bit more approachable for you. Same with eating well. People are like, oh my gosh, don't I have enough to do already? It's really important to eat well and exercise. I'm sorry. Once you're doing it, you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this sooner? Getting proper sleep, super important. With young children, that can be very challenging. Mindfulness practice is very helpful. Getting body work can be very helpful with the nervous system. Play is really important. So playing with your kids, playing and having fun in your own way, and giving your kids lots of free time for play. Therapy obviously helps a lot with nervous system regulation and shifting unhelpful patterns, and the safe and sound protocol, which we'll talk a little bit about today. So to help your child's nervous system, really all of the same things apply. And then there's also co-regulation. So children learn to regulate themselves by being regulated by a caring, supportive adult. That's what builds those pathways in their brain that take them from chaos to calm or dysregulation to calm. So co-regulation means that you are using your nervous system to calm yourself and help your child come to calm. So you're kind of doing this dance of like your children gets up here, you go up here and bring them down. Your child gets down here, you kind of come to where they are and bring them back up. So that's sort of the dance of co-regulation. It's of course a complex process, but and so of course, if you're up here all the time and your nervous system is activated, or if you're down here, because your nervous system is in defense, it's going to be a lot harder for you to co-regulate your child. So helping children get their system into the parasympathetic or into the rest and digest mode, helping them relax, essentially, through touch, togetherness, play is so powerful. And if their system gets in defense, this can be really difficult because, as I said before, your child gets a bit harder to reach. And what happens in the system is as you just start to be approaching calm, something signals your system it's not safe to relax because your system's in that chronic defense mode. So relaxing is not safe because your system senses that if you relax, the defenses will go down and then you won't be able to protect yourself. And so it can be really frustrating as a parent to be trying to help your child come down, and then as soon as you're almost there, they're like, oh, I got to get up and do something, right? And that's kind of what it often looks like in practice. It can be hyperactivity of busyness and just this inability to relax and rest. So I'm just going to go over the Safe and Sound protocol, which is a really, really interesting and new polyvagal therapy developed by Stephen Porges, who is the originator of polyvagal theory, which is based on like 30 years of research, and almost. And so he created the Safe and Sound protocol to help people achieve a grounded state where they feel safe, connected, calm, and social. This intervention uses popular music. So for kids, it's like some Disney music, Mary Poppins songs that many kids know. And for adults, it's like adult popular music, songs that you'd hear on the radio. But what they've done is they've embedded certain rhythms and tones that retune the nervous system through the middle ear pathway. So the middle ear is one of the pathways into the nervous system. So the goal of the Safe and Sound protocol is through listening to these tones with the support of a therapist to achieve a calm and relaxed and grounded state within the nervous system. It is non-invasive, and benefits include improved spontaneous social engagement. So, you know, it's somewhat unfortunate that we focus so much on teaching social skills when there are social skills deficits, because as much as there are certain practices socially that can be taught, so much of social engagement happens on such a minute body language level that it really can't be taught. And I've worked with so many kids who have gone through certain social skills interventions that have left them feeling a lot of shame. So I really like this intervention in that it is not invasive. It doesn't risk sending any messages to kids that they're doing something wrong or that there's something wrong with them. It's really a supportive intervention, and it improves spontaneous social engagement, as well as it reduces hearing sensitivities, improves language processing, and improves state regulation. So improves behavior regulation, emotion regulation. So basically helps you feel better, think better, and connect better. And because the vagus nerve is involved in so many of our bodily functions, this treatment can impact so many different physical systems, as well as you see here. So, I mean, the endocrine system, the digestive system. We're, of course, targeting the psychological cognitive meaning system, but even the renal urinary system, circulation, the vagus nerve has just such an incredible role in our bodies. So this is where I would normally come to questions. If you do have questions after watching this presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@attunedfamilies.ca or visit our website. And thank you so much for watching. Take care.